Hello and welcome to this special telecast on the sidelines of Nasscom's flagship leadership forum. The theme that we're discussing today has a potential to transform the way we work, the way we live. It also happens to be a theme that's very close to the Prime Minister's heart, building a digital India. The vision is there, but do we have an enabling environment to really get there as a country? That's what we're going to debate and discuss in this special show. We've joined by four very special guests right here at the Nasscom Leadership Forum. Mr. R Chandrashekhar, President of Nasscom, Ms. Neelam Dhawan, MD of HP, Noshir Kaka, MD of McKinsey India, and Mr. Arvind Gupta, Head of BJP's IT cell. Mr. Chandrashekhar, I want to start with you. Last year around this time is when Nasscom, for the first time, gave a sense of the growth opportunity of digital and SMAC. It said about 5 to 10% of the revenues of the industry, which is about, what, $6 to $12 billion, that kind of a range. A year down the line, has the opportunity increased significantly?
I believe the opportunity has increased significantly. We are seeing pretty high growth continue in that segment. We are seeing growth in areas like engineering, R&D being a little ahead of the rest of the segments. But arguably, one of the most exciting prospects is the trend and the ambition to apply both the expertise and experience and the new technologies to some of the problems in India and to achieve a dramatic transformation across different sectors by leveraging the strengths that we have and the technologies and the direction in which these technologies are evolving. I think that is most exciting, whether you look at areas like healthcare, education, financial services, skilling, manufacturing, any of these areas. Almost every area that you can think of significance in the economy can be hugely impacted if we focus this power and ability of the entire IT engine onto those segments.
Noshir, McKinsey came out with a fascinating report recently on the 12 technologies that could transform, the whole work, the way we work. How much of a role does digital potentially play in those 12 technologies? Could you take us through the key highlights there?
Sure. So two things, Sandeep, to your earlier question. One is, if you look at digital spending as a percentage of overall incremental spending on enterprises today, it's about 10%. You're absolutely right. We estimate that in the next 10 years, that digital, including IoT, Internet of Things, will actually be 80% of incremental spend of enterprises globally, right? Okay. And the second interesting factoid that we shared this morning was that if you look at technology spend as a percentage of overall capital spend in the US, today technology is 40% of overall capital spend in the US. In other words, you take bridges, ships, ports, everything. Technology is now 40% of CapEx, right? And that's a huge implication, which means that everything is moving in some way to digital. Coming to your point about the opportunity to leverage technology for India, all technologies, including digital technologies, we are hugely bullish. We estimate that somewhere between $550 billion to $1 trillion of GDP impact could be added to India. This is not from the IT services or this sector. It's what happens in agriculture, it's what happens in energy, it's what happens in healthcare. We can add $550 billion to our GDP growth over the next 10 years. It's the single largest opportunity for us, facing us. It is actually the size of our manufacturing sector today. That's the opportunity for us.
Ms. Dhawan, you probably run an IT company, so you're best positioned here to talk about, does the opportunity seem so large as things stand right now?
It's the time of transformation. And when time of transformation happens, we are moving from the old style of IT to new style of IT, where we are going to build in the cloud and the mobility solutions, and how are we going to use the large information base we have. The transformation always seems to creep on you. But perhaps it'll be a very, very large transformation we are going ahead with in the country. And when you add the dimension of future cities or smart cities, as we are saying, and Digital India on top of it, it is a huge opportunity which we are looking at. It is going to transform how we live, how we work in the country. And that's the exciting piece about it. It's no longer that IT is helping you do invoicing better or run your CRM better. it's all about IT touching each and every individual in this country, and that's where it is very exciting. And it is an opportunity, and I agree with, maybe Noshir is not talking about the big opportunity in India, but it is going to be a big opportunity.
Let's talk about empowering citizens digitally, Mr. Gupta. That seems to be one of the pet themes of this government, and that's kind of got resonance with the industry as well. But realistically speaking, how challenging is it going to be to do that, given the kind of bandwidth constraints that we have to start with?
Of course, infrastructure will be a challenge, but I think the speed with the two things in that, the speed with which the NOFN has to be implemented is going to be the key. It's just not going to be spectrum, it's also going to be NOFN. And secondly, the Digital India program, unlike the previous programs of any government, is one of the priority areas of this government, of the new regime, and that makes it get a lot of mind share from top down, from bureaucracy, from industry, from academics, from everybody, from the leadership of the country. So I think the success of the program also lies with the mind share and the vision that it has for the country. And you know, as you rightly said, it's the digital empowerment that we believe will be the amplifying force for solving some of the societal problems that RC mentioned about healthcare, education, and where we have an opportunity to leapfrog. So today it's not a it's not a need, it's a necessity in that sense. It is something that we need to do to make India compete at a global level.
Mr. Gupta spoke about the NOF and the optic fiber network. Mr. Chandrashekhar, you understand a thing or two about telecom as well. Is that the smart way to do it? Could we not have looked at satellite technologies maybe to get there quicker? Because, you know, to lay down copper, to lay down an optic fiber network will take a certain amount of time. And, you know, could we have looked at other ways of doing it?
Well, you know, infrastructure is our weak area, just as IT is our strength. Infrastructure is our weak area. And the first thing was to get everybody connected, and to a large extent that has happened thanks to the spread of the mobile. But now the challenge is, how do you make sure that they're not just connected, but they have broadband connection, that they have smartphones, and that they also have access through a landline, which through optical fiber gives you, you know, 10, 100 megabit individual connections. So I think it's going to be, in a country like India, a combination of a lot of these things. For example, if you look at something like satellite technology, that's probably a good thing for very, very remote areas where even laying a fiber or using the traditional means might be difficult. But it's an expensive solution, and if you try to do that for the entire country, it's going to make the whole digital revolution a very expensive process. And part of the challenge in India is to not only make it a revolution, but to make it affordable.
Sure. You know, there's some of the different pieces within digital as well. You know, there's cloud, there's artificial intelligence, there's automation. Which one of these pies do you think will become the significant driver for the industry?
So Sandeep, let me just also roll back to one of the comments which Arvind made, and then I'll answer your question. When I look at what we have been doing to participate in Digital India, there are two aspects which are very, very strongly being worked on. One is digital literacy. And where most of us, what I've been doing is, can we have education on the cloud? And we developed something called the video book, which teaches you your school curriculum on the cloud. And it is there for a state. It could be there for the whole country as a common cloud if you want it tomorrow. And cloud is becoming really important for doing education and ensuring that you bridge the gap between what quality of education you give in one place to the other place. And that's a technology which is getting used, and we have quite a few schools and quite a few lakhs of students on this right now. At the other end is this whole program in Digital India that we should have at least one person per family digitally literate. And there itself in our CSR, we are signing up millions of people to do it. So as Nasscom, when we sat down and looked at what is the member companies doing in this digital literacy, perhaps we are talking of tens of millions of people getting done and getting digitally literate in the next 2 to 3 years by the industry. So that's a big piece which we are working on. The second he talked about is e-healthcare. And I do have, as Hewlett-Packard, running 19 of these centers, which we have tied up with Narayana hospitals from Bangalore to do with us. And they are in places where there is no doctor, there is no hospital, and we are connecting them, and we are using VSAT to connect because there is no NFN, there's no network, there's nothing. But the innovation that was required is to connect the medical equipment to your computers, which are then connected to the health cloud, which has been created with Narayana Health, so that the doctors who are sitting in distant hospitals can see, prescribe, they get the reports from the device rather than saying, acha, blood pressure kya hai? No, they get it from the device, right? And that itself requires a lot of innovation to be done. All of this brings me to say the transformation which we are seeing is going to be built on the pillars and lot of innovation. And believe me, this innovation is not happening just because India needs it or Digital India needs it. It is happening across the globe. And as partners in this transformation, we must bring this expertise to India.
Mr. Gupta, the sense that one gets is that the kind of buy-in that Digital India has got from the IT industry, it hasn't quite got from the telecom industry, which is an equal stakeholder. And probably it's a more regulated sector. There are legacy issues as well when it comes to spectrum and bandwidth and all of that. How do you kind of get the telecom industry also on board, make them an equal participant in this?
I think some of the welcome steps have been taken in terms of the spectrum and making more spectrum available more. But I think as all of us are saying, it's a two-way street. The government has to walk a few steps. The telecom industry has to walk a few steps to make the spectrum issue, spectrum being more optimally utilized, and everybody needs to recognize it's not a free resource. It's a country's resource, and it needs to be optimally utilized. And of course, the concerns are both ways. I mean, the country can't give it away for free. And the industry also needs to make sure that that they invest and build a robust ecosystem and infrastructure around it. So, but if both talk and the business models keep evolving, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
That's an important piece.
I think the thing I would just say is two things. One is that in every industry, we tell this to all our clients in this industry, right? It's not about technology, right? So frankly, if you want to do financial inclusion, the banking sector has to be as much part of this. The healthcare sector, I mean, as Nasscom is doing with others, is partnering, right? So I think that ecosystem across agriculture, financial institutions, healthcare, education, energy, all of the sectors have to come in. The second is going back to your point, we are not saying that this is easy. This is not easy by any stretch of imagination. It is the single largest opportunity, perhaps one of the largest opportunities we will ever see in this generation, but it is not easy. I think access and infrastructure clearly is a challenge. But beyond that, I think we have other challenges. Neelam spoke about digital literacy. Shekhar spoke about the fact that you don't have the business model in the ecosystem. We also believe that you need to get the right incentives.
I was just about
around that, yeah. Right? Because frankly, we can talk about leakage prevention and so on, but that entire system you have to have the right incentives to make sure that that happens. And by the way, that's a huge opportunity right in front of us, right? So I think there are other challenges, and we shouldn't take away from this that says the potential is great, the government is doing a lot, therefore it shall happen, right? There is a lot that actually happens. 70% of Digital India, in my perspective, is actually outside of what the government directly does.
Ms. Dhawan, do you think there is enough of an incentive for the IT industry to get into some of these, e-governance projects? You spoke about these projects, but financially, at the end of the day, corporations are accountable to their shareholders, and nobody is here for a free lunch. So, is there enough of an incentive?
Industry is seeing that the business models are evolving. It's no longer government or the state or the city is going to buy the infrastructure, put it up and pay you, and then take the responsibility. It's all about can they pay as they consume the technology. It's all about can we pay per transaction if that's what's required. So the payment models are going to change, and they are changing. And I think we have to accept that because it is a huge investment which is going to be required to do this. But what's the exciting piece about it is we also have to work on how do the local commerce gain by this development of Digital India. So if we were to create a marketplace where the local businesses come together to do their business, it's like creating a mini Alibaba or an Amazon. You have local products, it goes onto the cloud, everywhere you see it and then you can fulfill orders from it. It could be the yellow pages, as we were discussing yesterday morning, which is no longer brings business to business together. Maybe it's the marketplace which you create brings business to business together, and then people will see value in it. They'll see their business grow because of Digital India and what it has meant to their businesses. We will work on it. The missing piece is still the content. You know, we had this limited success of what I would call customer citizen-centric centers and CSCs, which we had, citizen service centers. The limited success was not because they were rolled out incorrectly or anything. It was the content, the applications which were available. I think in this space, a lot of application work is still to be thought through and then worked on. Right. So I think the couple of things I'll say is it's the new business models, it's per transaction and how you consume. Second is the applications which you're looking at. And the third is the marketplace which you should create using the new technologies in this space.
Sure. But just to stretch that point further, Noshir, I don't know if it's probably good to quote an example, but let us. You know, TCS, for example, which is involved with the passport, facility here in Mumbai as well, and it's a national project. They've done a good job, the sense one gets. But I wonder how much money they've made out of it. What's the, how do you provide enough of an incentive to ensure that more companies take up such projects? Could we probably, the 2% cess that CSR activities that are required of corporations, could this be, covered under that? I mean, for now, how do you give incentives to corporations? What are your ideas?
When business models change, you have to change the financial metrics, right? So I would ask you the same question on Flipkart, right? Or any of the other, emerging technology-led enterprises, right? And say that, look, they seem to be driven, or they seem to understand a different set of metrics, right? And I think to Neelam's point, we have to create a different business model. This is not going to be a business model or a financial model that is replicated from, I have roughly about 15% growth every year, I have 17% in my SG&A, I have a 43% gross margin. That's not going to be the business, right? And so you've got to think about a different P&L and balance sheet. Does it have to be less profitable? I'm not so sure. Over time, I suspect, given the demand and the latent need, and the fact that, to Arvind's point, that this is a substitution for basic services, or let me say, this is the provision for basic services. You've got the demand, you've got opportunity, you've got technology-rich players, you've got a government that's supportive. There's a huge opportunity here.
I want to add here one thing, Sandeep. If you were to ask Chandra about passport, he'll say they've done well on the project, but they're not getting paid. And there's a reason for it. The government and the various project managers in the government and state governments and government-owned enterprises still look at this as a model where they're paying money for something which has been done. They have not changed it to an OPEX model, per transaction model, which should get paid automatically, right? So while he may struggle with the payment model, and here is where the challenge lies. While consumption pattern has changed to per transaction, and so that the payments get deferred, the payment cycles haven't changed to pay you as government or businesses consume IT.
In fact, just to expand on that, I think what we need is a couple of things. Number one is that there has to be room created for the industry to step in areas where these citizen services are provided to a large number of people, and enable the projects to be funded from the transactions directly flowing in. And companies will invest in a significant way and make this transition happen very quickly. The second thing is, it's conventional to think, okay, we want technology, let's call the IT companies. But the point which is missed also is that the IT companies have actually contributed dramatically to the process changes in businesses and in governments across the world. We've never looked at the IT industry as a potential partner or help in actually transforming the processes in the government, because when you're trying to transform the process to enable it to make optimal use of technology for the citizens' benefit, right, this is the industry which knows best how to do it. Sure. So I think building these models is critical. And currently the problem lies in the manner in which these services are procured. That is abundantly clear. I don't think CSR is the problem. Scale is achieved either by the government or by a business model. Sure. CSR is good in some things like digital literacy and so on, but not for government services.
Sure. So can we rework the model?
Well, I was going to say that, and you know, I think we have to move away from a procurement-based approach to an outcome-based approach, where clearly defined matrices, whatever is the outcome metrics, and make sure that the payments are happening on that. But that actually to me is a big concern, and I think we need to redefine some of our procurement processes first. And make it a different approach.
Yeah, and how do you pay for it? Even in the passport, maybe it's per passport, but should it be that the fee which is paid, the provider collects whatever percentage upfront, rather than going through? So the payment mechanisms have to be thought through.
No, right. Closing comments from all of you. Digital India, this grand vision, how much time before it turns into a reality? 2 years, 3 years, you think?
Well, I think that to be fair, there are bits and pieces of it which are already happening in front of our eyes, and every day you see some article here or there talking about how shocked and surprised they were by a pleasant experience on a visit to a government office. So these stories are increasing, but the fact is that there's so much more which needs to be done, and we don't have the luxury of doing it over the next 20 or 30 years. We've got to do it over the next 5-10 years. So unless we look at some of these basic problems, in terms of how the government is doing its own piece of Digital India. And the second is in terms of what happens outside government, how it needs to actually facilitate it, or at the very least, you know, address roadblocks. Then I think we can see a quantum jump in the pace of adoption, the way it has happened in mobile technology. People are ready, the ecosystem is ready.
Right. In the case,
I want to say one thing. Before you say Digital India, we have to do digitization of India. We have to get every document digitized, and that perhaps will be a parallel exercise which has to be done, and it will take few years. Doing crores and crores of documents digitized, it is a big task. So I do see that has to be a step before we say we are there in Digital India. Yeah.
Noshir, what's your sense, you know, given the buy-in that we have right now from the industry, how much time before this vision, before we see material impact of this vision as citizens?
So two things, Sandeep, we always say there's two-speed IT. I think there's two-speed in this as well, which is one is, frankly, we are seeing impact, right? And we have seen impact over the years. I mean, the Indian Railways, you know, you look at that and you look at that for years, right? And you could argue that that's actually been a wonderful reservation system that's allowed funds to be transferred across the country. I think equally, you know, for the full impact to roll out, you know, my sense is it's going to take time, right? And what I actually worry about is that are the citizens going to allow for that time? Because the reality of it is expectations are far ahead of reality today. And most of us who've worked in technology know that there are challenges. There are significant challenges in implementing these. And so I think we need to be both happy that we have done some things right, but equally pushing ourselves to say that the full vision of Digital India, I think, will take, you know, probably closer to between 5 to 10 years to actually materialize in the way we're saying, right? In the near term, you'll see impact as well.
Arvind, actually, that's the challenge for this government itself, to temper expectations, not just on Digital India, but on everything. But realistically, is that the big threat or the big risk that you see?
See, first of all, this is a leapfrog opportunity. And opportunities like this, as Noshir said, don't come every once in a while. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for all of us, and we need to make it happen. And the government is cognizant of the fact that, you know, we need, the time is finite, it's not infinite time. And some of the targets that we have, we hope to meet in the near short term. In the next 2 years, you will see a substantial infrastructure improvement. The village panchayats getting wired. And the vision of 2019 to get digital literacy in every home, I believe will be achieved.
That's a pretty ambitious vision, and if we get there, then I'm sure we would have achieved much of our Digital India initiative. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us with that this special telecast. Hopefully, like all our panelists are pretty optimistic about the road ahead. The fact that we will indeed be able to transform the country digitally. It's going to be challenging. We need to be patient, but hopefully we'll get there. Thanks so much for watching this special telecast.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.